And it's interesting because this is the beginning of your career and everything's kicking off and things are going well in that respect with film. But at the same time, right at the beginning of filming that movie, your father passed. So
5 days
talk
in.
yeah, talk about that paradox where you're on a high because you're finally getting to live that dream, but then you get a call from your mom and you find out Pop passed away
Yep.
and it wasn't like he was sick for a long time. You didn't know this was coming. So talk about that turmoil that you must have went through mentally, having so much excitement plus so much sadness at the same time.
Yeah. Well, so here I am. I just start. I get my big break. Again, I don't know if it's just a hobby or career, but I got a hunch, man, that I'm loving this. I'm being told I'm good for it. I feel like everything's adding up. This is the great. I mean, it's like, am I finding myself? Am I finding what I want to do? At the very least, my storytelling career has taken a big step forward, and this is so much fun. And they're telling me I'm really good at it. Wow. So the most important thing was going on in my life that had happened so far as identity and what are we going to do? What am I going to do in life? What am I going to be? And 5 days into that high, I get the call that my dad died of a heart attack. Whew. Ah. Well, as we know, things like that happen in your life. It doesn't matter what high you're on. That becomes, again, talk about clear purpose, as we talked about in the beginning of that becomes clear purpose. Okay, drop. It doesn't matter where we are, what we're doing. You don't need salutations to go check in with everybody and go, hey, everybody, I think I'm going to go. No, you go. You just leave and they can all handle the why, whatever you're doing. So bam, it was on in the evening and he had died that morning. And then I made a cup of coffee and hit the road and drove the 3.5 hours to Texas and back to Houston, and spent it in there with my two brothers who were already there and my mother. And we spent a couple nights, late night in the kitchen for whatever reason. I always find out about death in the kitchen. And I always have discussion whenever there's been death or anyone around us. We always end up talking about we there could be a beautiful couch and set it and table and chairs, and my family will end up being up till sunlight, sitting on the kitchen counters, talking about the loss of someone. I don't know why I bring up that detail, but it's been consistent in my life. So we have those 2 long nights, and death makes me extremely tired. Talk about fatigue. It makes me narcoleptic, and I would sleep even on the kitchen counter. And then wake up and you're kind of walking around and trying to figure out what to do. And my oldest brother's getting things organized because he was really close with my dad and was handling the will. And I'm whatever 20, 21, and trying to figure out what it's about. What's my place here? We have a wake, which my dad wanted. So he has friends come in from all over the country in for his wake. Um, I was, being the youngest and my dad being my ultimate sort of aspirational hero and what he had taught me about honesty and being respectful, etc. I took the proverbial mic in the wake and called out a lot of people that were friends that I thought maybe owed him money or something. I was the 20-year-old revolutionary in the thing, and you're going to do this, and you're going to pay mom back, and blah blah. Meanwhile, my oldest brother's in the back going, because he knew the business dealings much better. Like, well, that guy, dad owed that guy as well. Don't be calling him out. They had their thing. Trust me, I saw that transaction go down, and I'm calling people out, putting people to task, and you'll pay my mom, Um, I then hang out a day or two more, and the family goes, okay, you got to get back. I had no pressure from Linkletter Austin to come back. It was a one-way ticket home, obviously, when you do something like that. But my family said, "Get back and go. You got to go back and go finish what you started." That's what Dad really, really would want. You called him 2 years ago and said you wanted to go to film school and no law school, and he said, "Don't half-ass it." Well, going and finishing this job is part of not half-assing it. So I go back. I drive back to Austin, and I drive basically straight to set. And it was an evening. I arrive around sundown, and now, however grounded I was and ready to perform before Pop passed away, now I'm really grounded. you lose somebody. Talk about sobering up. I'm high on this thing. I'm acting. I got a job. Oh my God! Wow! I talk about being impressed with that. Well, loss of my father. I'm not impressed with having my first job as an actor at all. Now, there's nothing impressive about that. It's like, let's do this. I'm happy to be here. I respect it, but I'm not in awe of it. So I was really grounded at this point, coming back over to my father's death. And I remember walking around with Richard Linklater, and Richard's a great listener. He's a really good friend that way. And he and I had already started to, even in our knowing each other for about only a week, started to enjoy our philosophical conversations about the why, those things that we wrote in the journals back when I was 12, those, what are we doing here? And I remember just kind of saying, my father's no longer physically here, but I can keep his spirit alive. I can talk to him when I want to. Me being back here, continuing this work is keeping his spirit alive, because he told me, don't half-ass it. That's carrying on. That's keeping him alive. If I do my best at this job, if I keep the values of not hating and not saying I can't, believing you can't pull something off in life, that's keeping him alive. If I keep those alive, he just keeps living. And that, when I came out of my mouth, that's when it anchored in me right there. I was like, oh, well, that seems to be what it's all about right there. Just keep living. Not only for keeping somebody else alive spiritually in our lives when they're physically gone, but for us that are here alive. What else are we going to do? The alternative more than sucks. Just keep living. And it came out of my mouth in a scene that night on the football field. Randall Pink Floyd was going to sign. He was going through a debate about, do I sign the drug contact or do I play the football? And again, a fully improvised thing. I didn't have any plans. It came out of my mouth. I said, I don't know what you're going to do. I don't care which one you choose, but whatever you do, Randall Pink Floyd, you got to just keep living, man. Livin. And I do. It came out of Wooderson's mouth that night. So I was where I just come from. My father passing, it was coming now out of the character. Hopefully in a way that was true to the character, but I was that grounded me, as people know who lose a loved one. That was extremely grounded by that. And you lose a loved one, you sober up, and I don't mean sober up off of something that you're taking or putting in your body from outside. I mean your soul sobers up, your way you look at the world sobers up. And I remember the first lesson after the Just Keep Living was, be less impressed, more involved. And that's continued to be something that I think is very valuable to keep in mind, because you lose a loved one that's close to you, you lose a lot of reverence for mortal things in the world. And I think that's very healthy. Don't lose respect for these mortal things, but we can be blinded by our reverence for mortal things, fame, money, success. We can be blinded. So much so that we're not involved in them. Back when I got famous off of Time to Kill, wow, the impression of all this stuff. I was not involved with it. Hell, how could I be? I didn't feel myself. I was numb. I needed to get the hell out of there to go hear myself think so I could come back involved in the situation. Less impressed, more involved. And that was the second big lesson that came out of my father's moving on, and I ended up working for the next 2 weeks and continued to love what I did, and have tried to maintain my conversations with my father whenever I want to, those awkward times of picking up a phone, to try to remind myself, well, don't stop dialing now that you just remembered he's no longer here. Dial. Talk. Shoot it out. Have a conversation. Have a laugh. Have a cry. Anytime. And try to keep that up. I'm due a good conversation. I miss him I miss him now that I got kids. I miss him around. I miss I laugh a lot of times at jokes that I know he would have with my wife now that he didn't get to have. I miss sharing a script with him. He would have loved reading a script and going, oh, buddy, you know who this guy reminds me of? There's this old boy I met. He'd have loved that. He'd have loved the creative process. So, yeah, he moved on. It was 92, 5 days into working on, Dazed and Confused. So, there is great serendipity that I felt very early on, that he was alive in this life to overlap 5 days of me starting something that became more than a hobby. He was alive for me to start, so he didn't get to the set, he didn't get to see it, but he got to be alive for me starting something that would become a career, something I wouldn't half-ass, something that wouldn't be just "Oh, I did that for a summer," or "Oh, that was a fad," something that I turned in to say, "No, that's a career."